older guy who had more power than him?
Obviously, that criticism has been levelled at me, but well, I've never done that in my whole life. I've never abused my power anywhere. I'm not a bully. I don't. I mean, God, you read the things that you're supposed to be. You know, I don't lord it around TV studios. Everyone is a friend. I've gone through all of this time. Most of the messages I've got are from people that I work with saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe they're saying this. I mean, we love working with you." I snapped once around about the time that I was coming out. I snapped at one of our producers, and after the meeting, I immediately got up, went to her, and apologised. It's not me. I don't do that. I'm not rude on the studio floor. I don't bully people. I don't lord it around. We're all a very, very on one level team. And that's been the important thing for me in 41 years of television.
I can see how extremely concerned you are for the welfare of this young man. Did you love him?
No, we were just mates. We were mates.
Do you know if he has signed an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement preventing him from speaking?
No.
You don't know if he has?
No. At the time, I was asked that earlier on. Did I make him sign an NDA? No, absolutely not.
But there's a question of whether or not he was, as it were, paid off. And
No.
in effect, if he was paid off,
No.
was he paid for his silence?
No, God, no.
No. So is he free to speak if he wants to?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, what he wants is for all of this to go away. He wants a quiet life. He didn't want any of this to happen in the first place, and I'm sure he completely regrets it. It was my fault, so he has nothing to regret because it was my fault.
Has there ever been, or is there, an injunction or any sort of NDA preventing media coverage of your relationship with him?
No, and that was that was one of the things when the rumour started, and then when it came to light, and obviously both of us said, "What the hell is this?" I don't know. I said, "Well, it'll go away. I'm sure it'll go away." And then it started to grow legs, and it got bigger and bigger. It was said there was a super injunction. It was said I'd got him fired or moved on. All completely untrue. You work in television. You know the way the process works. No, you can't have someone moved on without it going through a whole team of people, the line of command. Why would this happen? I actually spoke to him the night before, or texted, either the night before or the morning of I came out and said, I'm going to come out tomorrow. And he said, "Oh my God, amazing. God, that's brave. Well done. I hope it goes okay." So, he knew about that. He was never gonna out me. We were still mates. And I think at the time it was written that the Sun were going to out me. Well, A, they weren't, and B, that's illegal. So all of these things started to grow. It got bigger and it got bigger and it got bigger.
It's been said that the Sun had a story. They were approached in, I think, November 2019 by the journalist Dan Wootton, who said he had the story that you were in a relationship with this young man, or had been in a relationship with this young man. And the Sun knew about it, but there's a claim now, which I want to invite you to address, that the Sun knew both things. They knew you were gay and they knew you'd had a relationship with this young man, but they decided not to do the story about you and the young man in return for the exclusive about you coming out.
Oh, God, no. No. Absolutely categorically untrue. We had massive meetings about... I had a secret WhatsApp group, I had a WhatsApp group called The Event, of which there were a handful of people. My management, the closest management, me, and a guy who's a sort of a media lawyer type of thing, trying to figure out the most elegant way to do this. Holly and I had lunch, and we're trying to figure out what was the best date. And then I was advised, when you do it, obviously it's going to be big news, you should really have an interview afterwards, and it was suggested to me that the Sun would be the paper to go to.
Okay, so let me put directly what Dan Wootton says that you can debunk if you wish to. Dan Wootton said, he now works at GB News, a decision had been made for the newspaper to have a closer relationship with ITV, and as part of that closer relationship, the Sun was offered ringside seats and an exclusive interview for this coming out announcement. As a result, obviously the Sun, wouldn't run a story about the young runner. It was prompted by Philip.
That is categorically untrue. And I've got to say, there are a great many things that have been said that are categorically untrue. Now, I have nothing against Dan, and now I've actually brought myself down to a far, far greater degree than you could ever have done. I have brought myself down. I am done. I have to talk about television in the past tense, which breaks my heart. But it continues, and it is relentless, and it is day after day after day after day. And if you do that, if you don't think that that is going to have the most catastrophic effect on someone's mind, what do you want me to die? Because that's where I am. I have lost everything. My girls saved my life. They said last week they haven't left me for a moment. They've been by my side every moment because they're scared to let me out of their sight. What is that like for daughters to have to go through something like that? And they said to me, don't you dare do this on our watch. We're supposed to be looking after you. And if my girls hadn't been there, I wouldn't be here because I don't see a future. And so how much do you want a man to take? And are you truly only happy when he's dead? And this is how Caroline Flack felt. And it didn't stop. And I know I've done something wrong. I know I've done something wrong. I've owned up to doing something wrong. But her friends texting me this morning saying, mate, this is relentless. When is it going to stop? What's the agenda? When is this going to stop? Someone said, you're being treated like Jack the Ripper. And I haven't looked at a single thing. That would be the final push. I haven't looked at a single newspaper item. I deleted all the apps. I took off all my notifications. I have not looked at my phone or looked at the news, but well-meaning people come through to you and can't believe this has just been said. Can't believe you've been painted out to be this person. We know you. We love you. Please love the person that we know you are. All of those things. But still it comes. Still it is utterly relentless. Uncontrolled. Online.
Why is all this coming out now, Philip? What was the catalyst? What changed?
It got too big. The lie got too big for both of us. It just got enormous. It was growing and growing and growing. And it crossed over from online to mainstream news. And that had to stop. For his mental health, it had to stop.
ITV's position is that they've only put out one statement about all this. They say they investigated allegations of an improper relationship and they were told by both you and the young man that there was no relationship. In retrospect, was that investigation a sham? Because it clearly didn't get to the truth, did it?
I think if you have two people who are lying, then what can you do?
But what did that investigation amount to? I mean, was it just a phone call to you and a phone call to the young man? Was it sort of a proper sort of independent?
I think he was asked quite a bit. I was asked a couple of times. So, it's... and it wasn't formal. But, yeah, I think, bearing in mind that there were two people who were absolutely intransigent in their denial, that it would have been pretty hard.
So did you coordinate your responses together to make sure the lie didn't get out?
No.
He lied independently, you lied independently.
He didn't ever want his name out there. He just wanted it all to go away.
Some people are saying, have said, that it stretches credulity to suggest that people at the top of ITV wouldn't have known about your relationship with this young man. It was pretty well known that the two of you were close, and people had specifically raised this with the bosses of ITV. And people say it's quite a short journey from that to saying they should have done a proper and more thorough investigation and they should have got to the truth. Isn't that a reasonable thing for people to say, given we're talking about abuse of power, potentially, given we're talking about workplace culture, in an era where workplace culture is under the spotlight as never before?
Yes, yeah.
They should have, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And you've been very clear about something else which you want to correct, which is, let me ask you directly, did you speak to anyone at all at ITV about moving this young man onto another programme?
Absolutely, categorically not. He was a really good colleague, runner, like very good. And so he applied to go to Loose Women and got the job entirely on his own merits. And I can remember him coming to me and saying, "Mate, I'm going to Loose Women." I said, "That's fantastic. That's
so the
brilliant."
suggestion that ITV moved him to solve a problem that they had festering on this morning is untrue.
I do not believe there is any truth in that at all.
Okay. Dame Karen McCall, I don't know if you've seen, given you've turned off all the apps on your phone, but she's told staff at ITV they've instructed a barrister to carry out an external review of the facts following your statement and departure. Will you comply with that external review if asked?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. When, in February 2020, ITV investigated whether you were having a relationship, they failed to get to the truth. When Dr. Ranj Singh, who's a regular guest on the show for many, many years, made a formal complaint to the bosses of ITV about toxicity on This Morning, which I know we should discuss, they appointed an external independent advisor to do a review who found, and I quote, "no evidence of bullying and discrimination." What would you say to those people who say, given that record, it's quite hard to have confidence in this latest review from ITV?
You just hope that it will be thorough, and I will also point out that I don't know. Some people perhaps may be toxic and see toxicity everywhere because that's the lens that they're looking at the world. There is no toxicity. There is no bullying. There is no discrimination at This Morning.
You said in your statement on Instagram that there is no toxicity at This Morning, and it's clear listening to you that something you really want. You're clearly very protective of a programme that you worked on for 20 years, and understandably so, because that programme's reputation has taken a very severe hit. If there is no toxicity at This Morning, why would Dr. Ranj Singh have felt compelled to make a formal complaint at the highest levels of ITV about some particular individual's behaviour and, as he described it, the environment at This Morning? Why would former staffers be contacting Eamon Holmes, who I know is not running to be president of your fan club at the moment, but why would former staffers be contacting him to say that they signed non-disclosure agreements to, and I quote, cover up the bullying and power abuse? I mean, that sounds pretty toxic.
I mean, I am obviously unaware of any of that. I mean, all of that goes on elsewhere. All I see is angry people shouting about a show they're not on anymore.
So why do you think, you asked a moment ago, what it is that people want to see? They're seeing you lose your job. They're watching you now suffer. Why do you think lots of people do seem to have it in for you? Are you toxic to them?
God, I hope not. I know I know what the issues are with two principal people who I wish, I don't like toxicity.
You've said that, to the best of your knowledge, the young man you had a sexual relationship wasn't moved to Loose Women on anything other than his own merits. He was moved there because of his own...
Got a promotion.
He applied and got a promotion, and that wasn't a cultural sort of cover-up by ITV. You've also said that, to the best of your knowledge, he hasn't been paid for his silence, he hasn't signed a non-disclosure agreement, or there hasn't been any sort of injunction. But I guess the other allegation or accusation that we made of ITV, they can respond next week, interested to know what you think, is not just that they displayed poor management, but it's that they allowed a culture of toxicity to develop at This Morning, but didn't do anything about it because the presenters were untouchable. It was all about keeping Holly and Phil happy.
I think it is utterly untrue. From my point of view, and I think Holly would say exactly the same thing, that is utterly untrue. If there was toxicity between, two members of a team that I was completely unaware of and they had beef with one another, then, you know, that's nothing to do with us. You know, the programme that I love and the programme that I left, I have never seen that from my position, or heard it, in fact.
When did you last speak to Holly Willoughby?
I WhatsApped her on the day that I put the statement up, and I said to her, I know you can't reply, you're probably not allowed to, but please know that I am so desperately, desperately sorry.
Did she reply?
No.
How would you characterise your relationship with her now? Is it broken?
I adore Holly. I mean, I've always adored Holly. She's my TV sister. And I, from my point of view, no. I don't have a problem with Holly at all.
What would you say to her, given that she's doubtless listening to you now? What would you say to her about, maybe publicly, that you said privately, about how you'd like to apologise and your hopes for mending that relationship?
I would say to everyone, I would say to my family, my friends, my work colleagues, the public, to ITV, to my management company, to everyone that I lied to, I am desperately, desperately sorry. But principally, I would like to apologise to him, because it may have been consensual, may have been fully legal, but I shouldn't have allowed it to happen. And that was a grave, grave error on my part. And I know that because of that, an absolutely innocent person is being persecuted.
On one particular point of fact, Eamon Holmes has suggested that there were taxis from your apartment to the studio, which this young man used, and that those were probably paid for by ITV. Did he frequently get taxis from your studio?
He didn't frequently come to my flat. He came to the flat once. To my recollection, he didn't stay over. He said he was passing and he was going to come in for a beer.
So the idea that he regularly got taxis from your home to ITV studios...
Utterly untrue. And also, I don't have an ITV car account. Presenters don't get that.
When you came out as gay, live on This Morning, Eamon and his wife were there, as you say, they were kind, they hugged you, you hugged them. He now says he felt used. Was that all fake? That's the implication of what he's saying, that there was this artifice to that day and that he was being used for a kind of reputational enhancement for you.
You come out as gay as a reputational enhancement. I think that in itself speaks.
When did you know you were gay?
I've spoke to my therapist about this because I had a wonderful marriage, have a wonderful marriage. Not brilliant right now. With an incredibly supportive wife and two beautiful children who had the most amazing time as a family. Us four is who we are. And something started to trip me up, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And my therapist has said, you can become aware. Things change. And over a period of time, it was a kernel, and it grew bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until I was really mentally struggling and like deeply mentally struggling. And my relationship with my colleague coincided with that moment. That is not an excuse. I make no excuses.
Do you mind me asking if that was your first gay relationship, or had you had gay flings or sexual experiences before then?
I think this interview is not about other experiences.
And it's obviously one of the hardest things that anyone who's gay can go through. Why did you come out when you did? As you said, nobody forced your hand, but why did you come out on the sofa
because
when
it
you
had
did?
got to the point where I weighed 9.5 stone, It was utterly torturing me. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. And I wanted to be brave. I spoke through it with the family, who have all been incredible.
Let's come to some closing thoughts. Do you feel, mindful as I am that you are very concerned about the welfare of one particular person, do you feel a victim in all this?
No. I feel a victim of hate after the event. And I think that there'll be a lot of people watching this thinking, how dare you? It would be easier for me to say, I don't feel like a victim. What I feel a victim of is spun areas of non-factual information and gossip and nastiness. But I don't look anymore. I've already told you how I feel, and I'm not in television anymore.
Well, you lived a lie, and with a lie, you lived with a secret life for a long time. And they say the truth sets you free. So for all the stress that you've been lived with, do you feel at least slightly liberated by speaking out today?
I'm glad that it's not a lie anymore. But if I could have taken the whole full brunt of this without an innocent man being hauled alongside, then fair play. But the fact that an innocent man, his friends, his family, the association is questioned. You know, everything has been questioned because you can say anything online.
Well, there are a lot of lies on social media, and there are a lot of lies about you. But I've got to ask, there are people who'd say, given he lied and lied in the past, why should we believe him today?
Well, I only my friends and family need to worry about that, because you don't have to worry about what I say anymore, do you? I'll just be saying that to the garden.
Have you been abandoned by a lot of people that you were close to?
Yes, but interestingly, I have also... It's been a very fine mesh of friends, and it's interesting to see who came through, and it's also interesting the new friends I've made, because there are a lot of people who I've never really spoken to in my world, who have reached out and been amazing. And one very prominent public figure phoned me the other day and said, I wanted to check that you were okay. I have never seen such homophobia in my life.
Why do you think this coverage has been homophobic?
If it was a heterosexual relationship, then, you know, it would have been a bit of nudge, nudge, wink, wink. If it's a gay relationship, then suddenly it raises eyebrows. It's wrong. It's wrong. People do find each other attractive in different age groups. I mean, it does happen, you know, but it's the mere fact that this is so gigantic. And I appreciate the workplace and, you know, and the history. I get that. But it's the fact that it's, you know, it's so massive is predominantly homophobia.
Is this the tip of the iceberg? Are there more allegations or revelations to come, or as far as you're concerned,
It was my biggest, sorriest secret.
Where do you think your career goes from here?
Nowhere.
You were brandishing your wedding ring, and I'd read that you had separated. Are you?
We are separated, but we're very much together.
What would you like to say to her?
Oh, my God. Can you imagine how difficult that conversation was?
Well, perhaps this one's slightly easier. She's not here, so you can...
No, I mean, I will never, you know, let's just say that it was an incredibly difficult conversation, the most difficult conversation I've ever had to have with her. And she is extremely disappointed because I lied to her as well. But she wished me well today. And so, we'll see.
And what would you say right now, publicly, to your daughters?
My daughters were... I called them and said, I have something to tell you. And they came out to see me and were unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I looked at them and thought, well, you got that right. And they don't think you're a bully. And they don't think you're toxic. And they know the man you are. And they know you screwed up royally.
And finally, what would you say to the young man in question?
I am he to whom I am the most sorry. By getting involved with me, I have caused you so much pain. And I'll never forgive myself that I made a bad judgment call. And if only you knew, in one moment, just one moment, if I'd had the judgment that I've had for 41 years, if I'd used it at that moment, then things would be very, very different for everybody.
Philip Schofield, thank you so much for your time.
If you or someone you know has been affected by any issues raised in this programme, head to BBC Action Line for information and support.
Hello there, good afternoon. Well, it's fine and dry for the vast majority of us again today, with plenty of blue sky and sunshine, including here in Hastings and East Sussex, although always breezier towards the south coast, particularly across parts of Kent and Essex, of course, with that onshore wind. Lots of blue sky and sunshine again across Northern Ireland. It's here and in Western Wales where we could see some of the highest temperatures in the UK over the next couple of days or so. But we're still plagued by this North Sea cloud shown here on the satellite picture. It is slowly burning back towards the coast, really from Lincolnshire northwards towards eastern coastal areas. It could linger for much of the day. Some convective cloud too this afternoon across the high ground of Scotland, also Cumbria and Northern Ireland, where we could possibly see one or two light showers develop, but otherwise dry. Temperatures in the low 20s, maybe 23 or 24 degrees Celsius out towards the west. Don't forget, the sunshine is strong at this time of year. The UV levels are high and the pollen levels are also high and will remain so as we head through next week. Now, overnight tonight, of course, that cloud towards the east has got a bit more of a head start, so it's going to be more extensive, pushing its way further westwards into eastern Wales and across the south of the UK, across the central belt too into tomorrow morning. Temperatures milder underneath that cloud, clearer skies further west. Watch out for a few mist patches developing into the start of the new week. This is how we're kicking off Monday morning. Again, that cloud will slowly burn back towards the coast. It could linger perhaps across the Wash and East Anglia, the Lincolnshire coastline for a while, where it's always going to be feeling cooler. Highest temperatures, best of the sunshine, out towards the west, 23 or 24 degrees. Now, there will be a few changes as we head through the middle of the week and the end of the week, with this depression just moving its way further northwards. Could throw us more high cloud out towards the southwest and maybe one or two showers later on too. Also, as the high pressure migrates further eastwards, we're drawing a southeasterly wind, just pushing this warm continental air our way, particularly into the southeast of England, where we could see temperatures rise by the time we get to Friday and Saturday in the mid to the high 20s in Celsius. Remember, it has been quite cool here of late. So in summary then, it's a dry start to the week. It's always sunnier in the west, cloudier further east, but by the end of the week, temperatures could be rising, a few showers possible.